councillors, senior staff members, members of the public in the gallery, and also members of the media, Mr Jeff Vivian and Mr Andrew Chowding. It's your first meeting, Andrew. Welcome along to our council meeting. I also like to welcome those people that are watching this online. We welcome you to the meeting as well. Councillors, the appropriate thing is that I do an acknowledgement of country at this time. The Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Kepikal Wadjuri people of the Noongar Nation and the Naju people who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. Councillors, we move into our agenda, and the first item is the attendance, and all councillors are in attendance. Thank you very much for that. We have an apology from Mr Burge, CEO, and we have Mr Walker as the acting CEO with us tonight. The other senior directors are with us in the meeting here this evening. We go on to apologies and notification of granted leave of absence. Are there any apologies, councillors? Or obviously I've announced Mr Burge's apology. So we go to application for leave of absence. Any councillor seeking to leave of absence? Councillor Horan?
Yes, I'd like to take a week off, 25th of August to the 5th of September. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, please, Mr President. Next Tuesday, the 29th of August, please.
Thank you. Any further leave of absence, councillors? Somebody please move that those leave of absence be granted. It's moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is it seconded? Seconded by Councillor Chambers. It's moved and seconded. I don't believe it needs any debate. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? That's carried 9 votes to nil. We go to announcement by the person presiding without discussion. I have nothing to announce tonight. And so from there we move to the declarations of members' interests. Declarations of financial interests. Any councillor declaring financial interests? No financial interests? Okay, declarations of proximity interests. Any councillor declaring proximity interest? Right, if not, we move on to declarations of impartiality interest. Any councillor declaring impartiality? Councillor Graham?
Yeah, no, just an impartiality interest on 12.4.1 as I'm a member of the Esperance Bay Turf Club.
Thank you. Any further declarations of impartiality? Councillor O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr President. I declare an impartiality interest in 12.3.6 as I am a client of one of the co-leasees and I have been for 2 years.
Thank you. Any further declarations, councillors? No, thank you very much. So we go to item 7 on our agenda. This is public question time, and I've got Ms Johnson has indicated she wished to ask a question, so would you come up to... We don't have a microphone there, I'll look at it at this stage. Can we... Thank you, Sophie.
Right, just a couple of quick ones. My first question relates to the Ordinary Council meeting in 28th September 2021 when my flagpole compliance matter assessment 77651 was considered behind closed doors. I'd like to know why no impartiality interests were declared for that behind closed doors item when the referral of Shelley Payne's item had been brought to council through council, and Shelley Payne had also previously sat on that council with yourself and those councillors at that meeting.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
We'll take that on notice. I think you've quoted a number of dates in there and some other issues, so we'll take that on notice and that you'll be given a written response on that one. Mr Johnson?
You can't reply and answer here, no? Okay, thank you. My next question relates to the Ordinary Council meeting 23rd of May 2023, where you, Mr Mickle, addressed the public and specifically Miss Emily Smith from the ABC in the gallery. And you made mention that there had been rumours regarding this council holding items behind closed doors. You went on to say that only matters that this Shire Council considers behind closed doors are only the ones that you must do according to the Local Government Act 1995. I've since located the relevant section of the Local Government Act 1995, which is section 5.23, where it lists different scenarios which an item should be held behind closed doors, and there was no mention of compliance issues whatsoever. And the only thing that my matter could have been considered under, I believe, is 2B, which states the personal affairs of any person, which by definition means involving matters of one's personal private life. So my question to you, Mr Mickle, is do you classify a flagpole compliance issue as a matter that involved my private life, please?
Look, we have to take that on notice because you quoted lots of dates, lots of places. You're very hard for me at this end of the table to hear what you were saying, but it will be on the recording, and so we'll take that one on notice as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
There's no other members of the public here asking questions, so we will move on with our agenda. So we go to public addresses and deputations. Is there any? Neil? Thank you. Petitions? Neil? Okay, so then we go to item 10 in our agenda, which is the confirmation of minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of July 2023. Is someone prepared to move the confirmation? Moved by Councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder? Councillor McMullen. It's moved and seconded.
Just point of order, does that include the special council meeting on the 1st of August as well?
It does. It does. Just clarify that one. Are you still happy to move it to confirmation of the special council meeting and the seconder? Yep, so that's included. Does this require any debate? Do you wish to speak to Councillor Oborne? Speaker against the motion? Councillor McMullen, do you wish to speak to it? Okay, if there's no speakers, I'll take it you're ready to vote, councillors. I'll put to the vote those in favour. Against, that is carried. Councillors, we now move to the delegates' reports without discussion, and the first one we go to is Councillor Oborne.
Nothing to discuss, Mr President, but just wanted to add today's briefing with Department of Transport regarding Rex. I think it's important the community is aware that we are advocating on their behalf with regards to airport service levels.
Thank you. We move on then to Councillor Flanagan.
Nothing further to report, thank you, Mr President.
Okay, then we go to Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr President. Can I also add the discussion with Department of Transport that we had today? Thank you.
Thank you. It might be good if we just add all councillors who are in attendance for that one today, so that can be listed on each one of them. Let's move on then to Councillor. My apologies. How are we going with our list? Councillor Graham.
Just the one to add that I enjoyed a month away from council, so I'm all refreshed.
Okay, so then we go to Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I'd just like to make a quick little note of the Staff Family Fun Day, and just what a fantastic event that it was. I took my grandchildren along and thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for those who organised it. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor De Haas. Councillor Horan?
Yeah, I'd just like to add the council fund day. I went to that as well. Just the two items. Thank you.
Thank you. So then we go to, my apologies, Councillor Chambers?
Just as table, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, mine are listed. I've missed Councillor McMullen.
That's all right.
My apology, Councillor McMullen.
I just after seeing Councillor De Haas's one there, it was remiss of me to include the opening of the dog park. That was a raging success, and I just wanted to thank both all my fellow councillors and the administration staff for making that happen. I think it's a wonderful result, and it's being very well utilised already.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McMullen, and your apology from those councillors, I guess, who've overlooked it in their list, because I think we had a very good turnout of councillors. And so that one's dealt with. Councillor Chambers has been dealt with. Councillors, my list is up there, and I think I've remembered to put the dog park in there. And the other point that I'd like to add to what two councillors have already said, I attended the Staff Family Fun Day. I thought it was a fantastic event, building a team work, but the great thing was that the partners of all of our staff were basically along. There were little children there that enjoy the day. It was a real team building day in my mind. And I'd like to extend my congratulations to Sophie Hawke and the staff members that supported Sophie. Sophie was the one that I'm told did all of the planning of it, and it was a fantastic day. And one of the other things, councillors, that I think has been highlighted, that there was lots of activity within the Graham Mackenzie Stadium, and as Shane Tobin said to me, it's really set up some ideas for what we might be able to do during the Christmas period when we get that few bad days, and that facility could be opened up to support members of the community, but particularly members that might be camping in the overflow camping. And so we learnt again what sites in our community that can be used successfully for the enjoyment of our community. And so that concludes. I thank all councillors who attended all those meetings, represented council in the various activities that we had. I really appreciate that. The councillors put that time in to go out there and be part of it, and to be communicating with the public through that process. So that concludes the councillors' reports, and so we go from there to the decision-making part of the agenda, which commences on page 12 of our agenda, and the item is first item is item 12.2.1, the street tree policy and strategy. And are there any questions that any of our councillors would like to ask to Mr. Walker on this issue? Any questions? If there's no questions, is somebody prepared to move the recommendation, which is on page 16 of the agenda? Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 adopt ASS 019 street tree policy inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions, and 2 endorse the street tree strategy 2023 following the public comment period.
It's moved by Councillor Oborne. Is it seconded? Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your item.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we, as you all know, have had this across our desks a number of times, and I'm moving the motion with it being back from public consultation. After being considered, the staff considered the feedback, and that resulted, interestingly and excitingly, in the inclusion of more species, considering the habitat for the Carnaby's black cockatoo, using local species for entry statements and focus areas around town, and I noted with interest that locals had a say about their own specific suburbs that showed pride and, you know, a sense of place. And it's important for people to have their say and feel heard, and I just want to encourage everyone who did take the time to provide feedback that they were heard and they provided valuable insights which have been included into this policy.
Thank you. Is the Speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak in favour?
Firstly, I'd just like to thank Councillor Oborne for her words. Almost what I had written down, but not quite as nice words. And I'd just like to add, trees are important for many reasons. From wildlife habitat to providing fresher air and shade, and endorsing this updated policy and new strategy is one way that we can help to protect them.
Thank you. Speaker against or an amendment? No speakers against and no amendment. I take it you're ready to vote. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. 9 votes to nil. We now move on, councillors, to the Corporate and Community Services agenda items. Item 12.3.1, the Delegated Register Position Title Updates. And this you'll find on page 36 of your agendas, and the recommendation is on page 37. Are there any questions, firstly, to Mrs. Baxter on this item? No questions to Mrs. Baxter? Then, is someone willing to move the officer's recommendation, which is on page 37? Moved by Councillor Horan.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the officer's recommendation that council adopt delegations 5.3, 6.2, 6.3 and 12.1 inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions. Thank you.
Right, it's moved by Councillor Horan. Is there a second to the motion? Second by Councillor Flanagan. You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Horan?
It's pretty straightforward. It's mainly housekeeping and updating, which we've got to do to all our different regulations we have. Thank you very much.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder wish to speak to it? Councillor Flanagan?
Nothing further to add, Mr. Chair.
Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? I put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? That is carried at 9 votes to nil. And that's was an absolute majority, councillors, because it's a delegation. Let's move over to the next item, which is the policy amendment, mineral exploration within land and road reserves, which is item 12.3.2. Any questions you might have to Mr. Walker on this?
Through the chair, obviously, as per Councillor Flanagan's request, we've sent the policy off to Demers to get them to review it. They have come back with one additional sentence to put into that. So as per that, I've sent through via email an updated policy just with that additional sentence, and just an amended recommendation just to say as amended, to include that updated policy. So if council's happy to accept that, that's what we're putting forward.
Thank you for reporting that, Mr. Walker. Any councillors who didn't receive or had not read that item? All councillors have had it? Okay. So then, if you've all seen it and you're familiar with it, let's deal with it in this manner. A policy as amended, inclusive of amendments, etc. Let's deal with it as a motion like that to deal with it now, as against in 2 parts. So we'll, someone prepared to move in that direction? Yep.
We'll move the officer's recommendation. Thank you. That council adopt the mineral exploration within the land and road reserves managed by the Shire of Esperance policy as amended, inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions.
So, we all understand that? We moved by councillor Chambers, so is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by councillor Flanagan. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion, please.
Yes, thank you. I think this is important to get this policy up and about now with the proliferation of the amount of exploration that's happening and is going to probably continue to happen in and around the Esperance Shire. I think this gives a very good lever for the staff to make sure that it's done in a correct way, and with the inclusion of making sure that it also goes hand in hand with the Mining Act 1978, I think it is.
Hey, thank you, councillor Chambers. Is there a speaker against the motion? Or is there a seconder wish to speak on the subject? Councillor Flanagan.
No, I think the matter's been outlined well enough by the mover. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? Councillor Graham, are you? Okay. Sorry, then I'll take it if there's no speaker against and no amendment, you're ready to vote. I'll put to the vote those in favour. Against, that is carried. 9 votes to nil. We move on to item 12.3.3, Post Office Square lease extension. Is there any questions on this item to Mrs. Baxter? I think it's a good report. No questions? Is someone then prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor O'Donnell.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council enter into the proposed lease extension with Telstra Corporation for a portion of 23 Andrew Street, Esperance, subject to 1. Lease extension term being 10 years with a further term of 10 years. 2. Further term excisable at Shire of Esperance discretion. And 3. Annual rent being $1 per plus GST.
Thank you. Moved by councillor O'Donnell. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by councillor Graham. Councillor O'Donnell, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Only to say that it's good that that Telstra has entered into this extension with the Shire of Esperance, even slightly disturbed by the fact that they wouldn't sell the area to the Shire of Esperance. However, it's good to have 10 with a 10-year further in 10 years' time.
Okay, thank you. Speaker against the motion? Seconder wish to speak, councillor Graham?
Yeah, look, I guess with 10 plus 10, 20 years, perhaps it clears it up a little bit moving forward, so the potential of some improvements be made to Post Office Square. I believe it's probably our most important piece of active public space in the middle of town, and maybe the Streetscape Committee could come up with some good ideas moving forward for the next 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is there an amendment to the motion? There's no speakers against or no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. We move on now to a licence reassignment, Esperance Airport Vending Machine, which is item 12.3.4, councillors. The item is on page 53 of your agenda, and the recommendation's on page 54. Are there any questions you have on this item, which should go to Mrs. Baxter? All clear? All got your answers? Thank you. Then is somebody prepared to move the officer's recommendation on this item? Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 reassign the licence with Lily Joe Wono for Esperance Airport vending machine, portion lot 15, Coolgardie Esperance Highway, Gibson, to Jasmine Scott, and 2, vary the licence to include provision for weekly restocking and require contact details to be visible on the machines, and 3, charge a reassignment fee of $240.
Thank you. It's moved by councillor Oborne. Someone prepared to second the motion? Seconded by councillor Horan. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a transfer of licence from one business owner to the next, as is clearly outlined in the report. But I wanted to take the time to commend staff for the initiative to include that extra line item about restocking and having the contact details visible, just to increase the level of service. We've got a long way to go in the airport, but things like this are a welcome initiative, and I'm pleased that, you know, people are thinking of this constantly, trying to do everything we can. And, you know, business licences need to come with a social licence to serve the community.
Thank you, councillor Oborne. Is there a speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just add a little bit. I go out there quite often and waiting for people, and I'm glad that machine's going to be stocked all the time, because with the way Rex Airlines are inconsistent, some of them have to sit out there for a while. It's nice to get it makes a nice cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? No speaker against, no amendment. I put the motion to vote. Those in favour? That is carried 9 votes to nil. We move on then, councillors, to the financial report, item 12.3.5, and that is on page 57 of your agenda. Is there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter about this item? No questions? Then is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Haas moves.
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Services Report for the month of July 2023.
Been moved by councillor De Haas. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded councillor O'Donnell. Councillor De Haas, you can speak to your motion.
Absolutely. As we're all getting to know, it's my favourite report to recommend. But all jokes aside, this really is an important report. Not only tells us where we stand financially and where our ratepayer money is being spent, but where our funds are coming from. And it really does make really good bedtime reading.
Okay, thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder wish to speak to it?
President?
Thank you. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried 9-0. Okay, so we then go on to the lease variation, the Old Sergeant Quarters Museum Village. That item's on page 103 of your agendas, and the recommendation is on page 104. Any questions you might have to I'm not at it yet. Mrs. Baxter, any questions to Mrs. Baxter? No questions? I take it then that someone's prepared to move the motion. Councillor De Haas.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council vary the existing lease with Dimity Steamer and Brooks Mall for the Old Sergeant's Quarters Museum Village, portion lot 100, 48 Dempster Street, Esperance, to remove Brooks Mall as co-lessee, subject to 1. Lease variation fee of $240 including GST being payable, and 2. Brooks Mall to remediate property modifications to return the premises to its original condition at her cost.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor De Haas. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor De Haas, speak to your motion.
Yes, this is just quite a simple variation of the lease to remove Brooke from it, to give Dimity the lease for the building. And once Brooke has remediated the property, we can move forward with it.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor O'Donnell, you wish to speak in favour as the second of the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a classic example of two small businesses working together in the museum village, and then like both of them have grown over the time. So and now one has decided to move out to a larger premises, and I think this is a classic example. And I hope everybody votes in favour of this motion.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? No speakers against or no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9-0. We go into executive services. Item 12.4.1, the proposed sale of lot 200 Bandy Creek Road. Is there any questions you might have on this item, councillors? No questions? Okay, if there's no questions, is someone prepared to move the motion? And I'd like to include in the motion appointing a councillor to represent the council in this decision, or in the recommending of the reserve price. Someone prepared to do that? Councillor Chambers.
I'll move the council. I'll move the council resolution that council appoint Councillor Chambers to the panel to determine the reserve price for lot 200 Bandy Creek Road.
Thank you. So it's moved by Councillor Chambers. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Flanagan is second to the motion. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a process that was set in place a long time ago to get the racing club up and going to where it is today. It's and hopefully that the sale of this land will continue to see the improvements to the racecourse in Esperance. It is well attended, not only through the racing fraternity but also as a function centre and everything else that they have out there. So I think improvements in that will benefit the community greatly.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder, Councillor Flanagan, you'd like to speak in favour of it?
Thank you, Mr. President. Only to say that I wholeheartedly endorse the appointment of Councillor Chambers to represent council in this important matter. I could not think of anyone better on council who would bring the commercial acumen to such an important role. So, yep, just wanted to add those words. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Or an amendment? No speakers against or no amendment. I put it to the vote. Those in favour show. Against, that's carried 9 votes to 0. Councillors, we move on to the information bulletin, item 12.4.1. Sorry. Item 12.4.2, the information bulletin. That item is on 116 of your agenda. Are there any questions we have on this item? And I haven't cross-checked it yet. Any questions? Must have got all of your questions at question time last Tuesday, councillors. Well done. So, if there's no questions to Mr. Walker, then I'd ask that someone move the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell has moved.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council accepts 1, Information Bulletin, August 2023, and 2, Council Priorities Summary, Corporate Performance, and 3, Delegations, Discharge Corporate Resources.
Thank you. It's moved by councillor O'Donnell. Is it seconded? Councillor De Haas? It's seconded by councillor De Haas. Did you wish to speak to it, councillor O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Only to say that it's, once again, it's really enjoyable to go through this report, and it just shows how much the Shire staff work through the month and what they're doing. I'm sure that every councillor enjoys reading what's happening. I'm particularly was heartened to read the 4.1.7 of the report implement of the Lake Mongemut Reserve Management Plan. It's been, with this Flora Park, it's been resolved through the government, and now that the pet cemetery is underway and works are ongoing in the national park area, so that we look forward to that opening or reopening or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor O'Donnell. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is the seconder wish to speak to it? Councillor De Haas?
No, I have nothing to add to that, thank you.
Thank you. So is there a speaker against the motion? Or an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. Put to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That is carried 9 votes to nil. Councillors, we move on then to the item 16, which was a late item to you that you will receive recently, last day or so, and
Through the chair, you've just skipped over item number 14.
all right, okay, so motions of which notice has been given.
No.
Neil? Members' questions with or without notice? No one's wanting to ask questions tonight. Okay, thank you. So we go to item 16, urgent business approved by decision. Councillors, I'll ask for a show of hands if you are prepared to deal with this item tonight. If it's lost, that you're not prepared to deal with it, it comes forward at a later time. Okay? So I think that's the best way to deal with it. I'll get a show of hands if you'll deal with it in this meeting tonight. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's all.
Sorry, can we get a mover and seconder for that motion?
We can, if we want to deal with it that way. So we're prepared to move that we deal with item 16.1, I think it's listed as, isn't it? Yeah, Councillor Flanagan?
Mr. President, I move that we deal with item 16.1 as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Flanagan, seconded by Councillor Chambers. Does it need any debate? It's an action motion. We'll debate the subject when we get, as long as you're willing to deal with it. So, do we need to debate it now? Do you want to speak to it, Councillor, that why we should deal with it tonight?
It's an urgent matter that's important to council, and I believe we require a decision today, so that's the reason I've moved the motion.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Or amendment? I don't think we need the seconder. We put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. Okay, now are there any questions on item 16.1 to Mrs. Baxter or Mr. Walker?
Through the chair, just to briefly explain,
Please.
just with the budget process, we just overlooked this carryover. So council already accepted the tender for the construction of units out at Castletown, but unfortunately through the budget process, because this was a budget amendment so late in the piece, we forgot to carry that over. So it did miss my list to flag to carry over to the finance team. So yeah, we're just trying to fix that anomaly. It's a nil effect to the budget because it's a reserve transfer.
Any questions, councillors? Any questions to Mr. Walker or Mrs. Baxter? Did you wish to make comment, Mr. Baxter?
Just that it does impact the budget. It is an amendment to the budget, but it's no effect to the surplus or deficit balance that we adopted. So, because it is reserve funded.
Thank you very much for explaining that. Any further questions? If not, is someone prepared to move the substantive motion on this item? Councillor Chambers.
I move the officer's recommendation that council approve a budget variation as per the following table, which is the unit construction amended figure of 1.6 million, and the land and the addition of that, and then the removal of, can't see that. Yeah, the funding from the reserve. Sorry, not quite read that far.
Yeah.
That's all right. The council approved budget variation as per the following table, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Is there a seconder to the motion? Second by Councillor Oborne. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion.
Sorry for that. Couldn't quite see. We all know that getting anything built in this town is very difficult. I don't see any reason why we should delay this any further. There is certainly a definite need to get these units constructed, and the sooner we can get to it, the better.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Oborne?
Only to agree with Councillor Chambers on the urgency of getting this project started, and just to add, that this is really important in our recruitment and retention strategy. If we don't have houses to recruit people from outside of town, then we will continue to have ongoing shortages, so this is really important.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Councillors, I'd speak in favour of it. I'd say we made a very clear decision to work on this. It's a piece of land that we have that we can build on. We've got a reasonably good contract, I think, to work with it, and it's bringing more housing into our community is another key point as I see in it. So I think it's just important that we progress this, and we've got a willing contractor, and that we can only hope that we get these built in reasonable time, and if we don't need them ourselves, they're on the rental market or something along that line, but chances are with recruitment of staff we have got nothing to spare at the present time, and this is needed. So I just ask all councillors to support it. Speaker against? Is there an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please. Against, that is carried. Okay, so that's the item, that item dealt with, and now we go to matters behind closed doors. Councillors, is somebody prepared to move that we take that meeting behind closed doors? Moved by Councillor O'Donnell, second by Councillor Graham. It's moved and seconded. Is there any speakers against that motion? I put it to the vote then. Those in favour? Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. And so we closed doors. I need to advise the public of what we've been doing. For the privilege of the people that are watching online, it's appropriate that I advise you that while we were behind closed doors, we dealt with a number of items. There were 4 items in regards to tenders for earth-moving equipment and also for a supply of guardrails, etc. We also dealt with the issues of building a fire shed at Conningup, and there's tender involved with that, but there were some issues in regards to funding from DFES, and we also listed a number of housing blocks. Some of them have been sold at Shark Lake Industrial Park and a block of land at Hockey Place. We have also agreed to list blocks of land at Flinders going forward. So those items were dealt with, and with that we have a public question time. There's no members of the public in the gallery, and so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Thank you.